Hello, welcome to Cruising in the Light and Shadow. My name is Anana Moon, and today I have an amazing guest. But at first, here I would like to start with a quote from Margot Adler. And her words are, "The world is holy, nature is holy, the body is holy, sexuality is holy, the imagination is holy. Divinity is immanent in nature. It is within you as well as without. Most spiritual paths ultimately lead people to the understanding of their own connection to the divine. While human beings are often cut off from experiencing the deep and ever-present connection between themselves and the universe, that connection can often be regained through ceremony and community. The energy you put out into the world comes back." I am introducing a dear friend and wise man, Merlin. He has been studying the arts magical since the 70s. In 1990, he founded the Celestial Order of Bards, Ovets, and Druids, with the idea of combining traditional Druidism with the teachings of Terence McKenna. I'm going to ask you about Terence as well. Since that time, he has written multiple rites for the 8 major holy days, diverse full moons, and conducted nearly 400 circles. Merlin's novel, Ariel and Electra, subtitled Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Light Shows, and Magic in Space, is a way of looking at the future of paganism as well as shamanic temple drama in the coming age. And you have a forthcoming book, is that correct? The Book of the Celestial, an exhaustive compendium of his writings on the adventure thus far.
Yeah.
I hope he's definitely sharing some of his adventure thus far. Welcome, Merlin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be gazing upon your serene self.
And likewise.
Yeah. What a wonderful opportunity.
It is. It is. I'm just thrilled to have you, and I know the listeners will be too. So let's just start. I feel like I'm giving you one question, and then you'll just go, basically.
I can do that.
What has been? So Merlin is definitely an author, but you lead ritual. You know, I've known you in so many aspects of your life. Let's just go. I will go here. What is your spiritual journey? What has been your spiritual journey thus far?
Oh, well, I'll tell you a story.
All right.
Back in my junior college days at LACC, I had the opportunity to be the entertainment editor of the paper. Okay, cool. I like that. And in the process, I got invited to an event for this filmmaker, Conrad Rooks. He was going to appear on the David Frost show.
Oh, yes.
I said, okay, cool. Now, this guy, Conrad Rooks, had made a film called Chappaqua, which is available somewhere. And in the film, which was about him shedding his heroin addiction, he spent his entire inheritance on making this film. He's an interesting guy. He went on to do 2 other films on 2 Herman Hesse books, another story. Anyway, on the show with Conrad Rooks was one of the featured people in the movie, Satchidananda.
Yes.
And when Satchidananda came into the studio, the vibration shifted. It was palpable. It went, "Whoa," and suddenly, he had my full attention. At the end of the show, I had a chance to meet Satchidananda because I'd, at this point, become on first-name basis with the Conrad Rooks press secretary. Mm-hmm. And I shook Satchidananda's hand, and it was like Shakti, it was incredible, wonderful change in my own vibration. Then, okay, that was a great thing. I went out and I bought every book I could find by Satchidananda.
Yes.
I got his vinyl album. which now is
He had
probably
an album. All right.
number one on the on the Enlightened Being hit parade.
Wow.
Anyway,
All right.
so okay, so well and good. That was that experience. Then
Right.
2 weeks later, I'm at my friend Joel's bar mitzvah at a temple right around the corner from my house. This is after I've saturated myself with the Middle Eastern joys of Satchidananda. And there was a rabbi there conducting the bar mitzvah. And I met him after the performance, after the bar mitzvah itself, where, all that stuff goes on.
Yeah. I've been to one.
And I shook his hand, and he had the same energy as Satchidananda. Oh. And I'm going, oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
So I've come to this kind of universalist understanding of religion that if you're holy, you're holy. It doesn't matter how many points you have on your star.
Very interesting. Yeah, no matter how many points you have on your star. I agree with that in that I studied in India with yogis in an organization that was so beautiful, and there was so much meditation. And I didn't know at that point that I was clairvoyant, but I kept seeing a surge of light happen around people. And every time there was deep meditation, and it went deeper and deeper with these yogis, the light turned up. And then I was also, because I was now with a whole group of people, I could see a light kind of developing over the heads of the crowd and then over my own head when I would meditate. And in time, even though I didn't know what that was I was seeing, I do know that intuitively, as I was teaching meditation, something would start to happen where I would know what was going on for someone in their minds, in their consciousness. And it always seemed to be, to me, like there was an exchange of light going on. And then add to that, as years went on, I would see the Dalai Lama. I would, if I saw different holy people giving talks, they either had a light around them, or it would start to develop and like weave itself over them and around them, and then around the people that were sitting there watching them speak. And I thought exactly that. In time, I was like, this is what happens with holy people. This is how you know someone is really connected in some way. It didn't matter the connection, didn't matter the religion. It's just that there would be a connection of some kind that would happen, and it was a charged, beautiful energy. So that's fascinating that you, to me anyway, that experience is something you were seeing.
Yeah. Well,
So
it became one of the
Yeah.
cornerstones of my way of looking at religion and the world, which I will get
In
to.
what way? All right. Okay. All right. In what way, though? You could go ahead, and if you want to go there, that's wonderful. And also, one of the things I learned from Merlin, or learned about from Merlin, was Druidry, that it still exists today. So if you want to talk about that, that would be wonderful.
Well, I'm fascinated by your experience. When did you go to India?
I was in my early 30s then. And I was, like I said, I was with Raj Yoga organization. And I studied in Rajasthan, Mount Abu. It would be an hour, it was a 17-hour train ride from New Delhi to Rajasthan, the base of the mountains, and then taking a bus ride, an hour bus ride. So it felt like straight up this mountain to Mount Abu, which had been a place where small kings, little kings, had their palaces and so forth. And we're talking about in the 1700s, 1800s, and so forth. And that there were, but this is where the yogis had the Raj yogis had their large center called Madhuban. And they would have seasons for spiritual students, and the American season was usually in March or April, just as springtime was coming in. And the different Raj Yoga teachers would gather and give lots and lots of talks. There were lots and lots of classes, and lots of meditation from 4 a.m. in the morning through the evenings. And you came away, usually you'd spend whatever time you wanted. It could be 4 days, it could be 2 weeks. And I usually went for 2 weeks at a time, especially after that first time, because it changed you. It helped you know yourself. You got deeper as a person, and you had Raj Yoga in this particular practice was really about deep tapasya meditation. So you learn to deal with yourself and deal in silence. You could talk, during dinner and walking around, or you could stay in silence if you wanted to, but the meditation sessions were very, very deep. The classes helped you deal with yourself, your own emotional baggage and so forth, with all of these very evolved yogis. And I was fascinated enough to keep going. I went 3 times to India, but then I was also with the organization here in California. So yeah, that, and I honestly did not know until it took me probably 10 years of being in that practice, loving that and learning so much. But that's where my intuition developed.
How beautiful. I'm picturing you in white robes,
I wore a white sari.
Yeah.
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 Oh, see, your intuition, of course.
Well, it's hardly that. It's that would be the thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You join in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you felt all, I'm curious too for you, you felt all of this. You watched Satchitananda speak, and you felt you saw his energy, you felt his vibration. Had you always been able to do that, or was that sounds like that was the first time you really...
It was a revelation, yes.
All right.
Oh, it's okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'd been exposed to Ram Dass and Be Here Now. But
right.
It didn't really come home to me until I met Satchitananda. That was really intense.
My goodness. So why Druidry? How did that come into your life? And would you even call it that now?
I was just picturing Druidry coming into my life as a black cat padding across the floor. Oh, hello, Druidry.
Druidry, my old friend.
Yeah. Well, I found a teacher, a magical teacher, in 1980, 82, in there, at the Renaissance Fair. At the Renaissance Fair in Agura, where Celestial has been holding circles ever since 1995. However, I digress. Her name is Merlin, and she's wonderful. And she basically showed me what it is and where it's at for magic. She knew, and she was able to transmit that knowledge, at least in part, to me, because she knows a lot more than me. And so after 3 years of knowing Merrily, she asked me if I wanted to be an initiate with her group, her Wiccan group. Mm-hmm. And I was with them for 4 years, got my gold cord, and learned a whole lot. But at that point, I thought, this isn't entirely me yet. I have trouble calling myself a witch, because I'm not. Yeah. But, if I call myself a druid, that nicely sums up all the things that I believe and know. And at that point, I was like on fire. I was inflamed with creativity and wrote the first of what was to be many rites that followed.
All right.
It was for Imbolc, which is...
You wrote several for Imbolc? We've talked about Imbolc on the show before.
Okay.
So what is it? I guess I want to take it into what is it you believe then in your look at spirituality, whether we call it Druidry or not? What are the basic tenets
Sure.
or thoughts?
Here it is, basically.
All right.
This is my take on Druidism
Right.
and religion and where they fit together. Druidism, being an eclectic mix of prominent occult thought and Celtic traditions, is essentially a set of concepts and beliefs that are only generally agreed to. It's like it's really
Generally,
it's
agreed
really
to,
a
yeah.
challenge to
Yeah.
get two druids to agree,
You know what? Yeah,
as it is with most pagans.
that's going to be true. Yeah, every
See, there's
individual has their own line of belief.
Yeah. There's no central book. It's not like having a Bible. There's many books. And
Goodness.
yeah. Anyway, Druidism is both a religion and a philosophy.
Yeah.
And to be accurate, it should be seen against the backdrop of general religious experience. Is Druidism a religion or a philosophy? Yes.
Yes.
So I got this from Tom Wolfe, an electric Kool-Aid acid test. He says that religions are formed around folks who have direct experience of the divine, usually in a psychedelic or mind-altered state from which they return with revelations. Reading the histories of various religions, you will see that there's a case to be made for that.
Yes.
When they come back, their friends want to know what they've learned, right?
Right.
And those people become disciples. And those friends go out and contact other friends, and they become followers, or whatever word you choose to use. And it's all basically where one person has the direct experience of the divine,
Yes.
and other people regard that person as a master, a teacher, but they don't generally partake of the religious experience that brought that person to those revelations. Now,
That's fascinating.
it's true, though,
It
isn't
is
it?
very true. Yes. Yeah. Why would you say that's the case? Because it truly, in my experience too on this journey, people will say they have the desire to have those experiences or go beyond just a general knowledge, but very few do. Very few will go more deeply after they have found someone maybe the best way to say it is resonate with whoever has had the experience.
For me, everything changed in the 60s
Yes.
because America did not have a shamanic tradition.
True.
It didn't have yoga for the most part. It was, a rarity to find another yogi at that time, etc. The consciousness was very, very conservative. Then psychedelics happened, and suddenly everyone could have religious experiences on their own.
Yes.
They didn't need a teacher.
Yes.
Very often they didn't need anyone to guide them. And people explored. They went out there and checked out the universe and had that experience of the direct experience of the divine, which is that mind-opening, revelatory moment where all things are one thing and all that can be known is known.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's that, whether you're connecting to the elements in a deeply spiritual way or connecting to spiritual beings, ascended masters, gods, goddesses, whatever you call them, the fae, the fairies. When you feel like you're connected to something almost beyond speech that connects you, then it takes you on a journey right into a universal source knowledge.
Yeah.
Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah. To be perfectly clear about this, the first rite that I devised, that Imbolc rite, was 70 pages long.
Oh my goodness!
But that included the background material and a bunch of quotes.
Oh, okay.
So it also included an initiation, easy for you to say. And the initiation involved taking mushrooms in a sacred context. So we had a temple in the mountains, stone walls. It was nice and isolated. And we launched into this rite, not really knowing what would happen, because there was no history that we knew of at that time of magical groups eating mushrooms and doing magic. And it was...
You'd not heard of that or known about like shamanic practices?
Well, shamanic practices were really kind of in the shadows.
Oh, that's
at that
their own
point.
thing. Oh, yes.
And
okay.
as I said, America did not have a tradition
True.
of
Yeah.
any kind of shamanism other than psychedelics, which, had its teachers and its leaders.
Yes.
But that's another story.
Yeah. Terence McKenna, right?
Among others, yeah.
Among others. Okay.
I met Terence McKenna 4 times. He was amazing. He was the most literate, articulate person I've ever met, with the possible exception of Timothy Leary.
Ooh.
I had 20 minutes with Timothy Leary while he was waiting to do a play. But that's
I have
another
so
story
many
too.
questions, but yes, we will go off topic if we go there. Exciting, however. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how did this ritual go? Let's go. Let's try. I'll try and contain it. How
It
did
went
that ritual go?
really well, actually. And
All right.
it was deep and it
All
was
right.
powerful, and no one had a bad experience, which is always important.
Excellent.
And
Well, you had created sacred space too, which I think, if you're on psychedelics, I have not done that, but that helps, doesn't it? Didn't you? You did something to create a space that people knew they were part of.
Yes.
Okay.
Traditional magical practices, which have since become celestial practices. We follow the basic Gerald Gardner 7-set way to go to set up sacred space.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So in that sense, it's conservative. However, we often get high before we start, which helps, opens up the mind.
Yes.
For most, it's not mandatory. And in the process of doing that, it's a lot easier for me to become bardic and speak sooth and quote poetry and be a poet my own self.
I'm going to stop for a moment and ask you to explain being a bard. I'm pretty sure that is not something we've talked about here, but it certainly goes hand in hand with druidry and the elemental. Go ahead and explain bard and how it actually is a spiritual movement.
Okay.
Please.
There's a group called the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids,
Yes.
which I must clarify, Celestial is not officially affiliated with. However, they have a wonderful set of course materials that I heartily recommend. And they draw in people who are bards and people who are druids. And the course is 3 years, and it's comprehensive and
Goodness.
recommended.
Right. But this sounds like a spiritual experience for you, how the bard it sounds like the bard the bard within you opened itself to the opportunity to speak. Would you say that's?
I would hope so.
All right.
Sometimes the moonlight is on, and sometimes not.
Oh, okay.
So let me tell
All right.
you about Robin Williamson.
Please.
He is a musician, a very fine musician. He plays everything. He prefers a cittern, Scottish bagpipes, and especially the harp. But he usually comes on stage with 8 or 9 of the things. Mm-hmm. Now, in the 60s, he was a member of the incredible string band.
Oh,
And
yes.
if you're
okay.
not familiar with their music, there's a lot of it on YouTube. Now, he, for me, is the quintessential example of the modern bard. He's got a lot of material out there, also on YouTube, and he's worth checking out.
Okay.
Now, he said at one of the lectures that he gave, in order to be a bard, you have to know 2,000 songs and 1,000 stories. And the way that Druids got to where they were Druids was by taking a 20-year course that included learning all these songs and stories. Now, every time a Druid would learn a song or story, he'd notch his staff, or her staff, as the case may be. And when the staff was completely full of notches, that was when the Druid was ready to go out into the world.
All right.
Now, the stories and the songs that they told were, in a sense, parables and ways of exploring consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are enshrined in the literature, the Mabinogion, for example.
Yes.
It was the bards who were responsible for inspiring people and bringing them to the light in many ways. And that was why they were also Druids in many cases.
So that's more the definition of a Druid, bringing consciousness or bringing something or someone to the light.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of shamanic practices map over.
Yes.
For example, the
Yes.
idea of going to the other world to get healing for a person in this world.
Yes.
That's part of the Druidical writ. It's part of the concept. Yeah.
Have you done that work as well?
Once.
Right.
Once.
All right.
It was intense.
Let's wait again. So many questions. Let's go back then. So, the rite that you're speaking of, and there was the taking of mushrooms. But what happens for people? It's not just, oh goody, I get to take psychedelics. What is the experience or the intention that people might set for themselves?
I wouldn't know.
All right.
We don't usually discuss that. I only
All
know
right.
what's in my own head and heart. There was one night where we were similarly occupied with mushrooms, and suddenly I had this desire to go into this space. We were under the house in a basement room, and the house was built into the side of the mountain, into the very bone of the mountain, so we could actually touch the bedrock. And I went into this one room, which had been used for ceremonial bathing. And I knew intrinsically and completely that I was in the presence of God. And it was such an overwhelming, joyful feeling that I didn't have any intellectuality going on at all. I didn't have any questions to ask, I was perfectly content just to be there basking. So yeah, that fulfilled my unspoken intention.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my. So you would want at that point just to be in the moment and allow yourself to experience rather than like, by the way, I have a few questions for you.
I'd be honored. That would be great.
Tremendous. All right. So what else do you want to tell us?
Well, I have about 500 or 600 pages of
Yes.
notes here. I have
Well, we better get started. No, please, whatever you want to share, I think is what I'm excited to hear.
All right.
But I thought people would want an idea of what Druidry, of what Druidry is. And so that's wonderful, you've given that. But what would you like? What's the essence of what you'd like to share today?
Well, I'd love to just ramble on about Druidism, if I may.
Please, by all means, yes.
Druid, spelled Drui-WID, is Irish Celtic, and it can be translated as oak wisdom, or tree wise. Yeah. Now, my friend Rain of the Purple Forest says, we live upside down, and the oaks live right side up, with their heads in the earth and their roots in the air.
Yes.
Now, the goal of the Druid is to become the oak, living on water and light, part of the pattern, part of all that is, was, and will be. The way of the Druid is through the veil, from this life to the next and back again. Or, another way, traversing the concentric spheres of form and spirit and divinity. Abred, Gwynfed, Cogent. That's Welsh. Or another way, crossing into the parallel realm of Anun to retrieve knowledge or power, that shamanic thing we were talking about. Or another way, looking forward in time and speaking sooth.
So sooth being the truth.
Right? Sooth being telling about what is going to come.
All right.
Yeah. A Druid sings of all that is. All that is. A Druid's dreams delve other dimensions. A Druid's fuel is the magical wind of cosmic love. Okay, I'll stop there. You have questions?
Boy, do I. Where do you, because I definitely want to get this in, where do you hold your rituals? Because I've been honored to have gotten to experience some of your rituals. They are there was a period there where I couldn't wait because I was just learning so much. Are you still holding rituals?
Well, the situation is kind of strange at the moment, and has given me more time to work on my book. But back at Hallows Eve on October 31st of last year, we had a marvelous ancestor connection rite, and it worked really well, and I'm walking away feeling satisfied. And the walk to the hill on which we do our work is about a mile.
Yes.
And this particular time, I was really not doing well. I was having some chest aches, and I was short of breath, and ended up like having a really difficult evening of it health-wise. So 4 days after that, I was in Boulder, Colorado, and got news that the park, Paramount Ranch Park, had the fire sweep through it, and there was significant damage.
Right.
So I thought, well, this is a good time for me to take a break while the earth recuperates, which I'm glad to say it's doing really well.
It's growing. So it's growing back fast then.
It is.
It's great.
It is.
Right.
So my health is improving. Paramount Ranch is improving.
Is there a feeling you're connected somehow?
Somehow, yeah.
My goodness. Okay.
And at some point soon, I'm inclined to go back there and continue the magical work.
Oh, please,
Yeah,
please
that makes
do.
me happiest, is being in my magical head, you know.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You hold such beautiful space for whatever work. And having seen a lot of people, or experienced being there myself, but being with a lot of people and seeing that everyone has their own intentions and their own reasons for being there. It took me a while to understand it. It was the recognition that the land was holding space, but then you and spirit holding space for those rituals.
If
Yes,
you want to
contact
contact
me.
me, you may do
Yeah.
so through Anana. I suppose there's an email address for the podcast.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
There is. I would also. How about Facebook by any chance?
Yeah, Facebook is
okay,
good.
it's a
There's
all right, I'll put that
there's a
up.
Facebook page for Celestial Order of Bards, Ovates, and
Ooh,
Druids.
perfect.
There's a
Okay.
Facebook page for me, R. Merlin,
Okay.
and I will be happy to send out this backgrounder to anyone who's interested, and even be available to speak if that's called for.
That would be exciting. I want just a so much. But let me come back to something just briefly. And this sounds scary when I say just briefly. History. Just where could you say from the Celts does the period of the Druids exist or show itself?
As far back as 5,000 years ago.
5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
All right.
Druids were the shamanic center of the Celtic tribes. And of course, the Celtic tribes ranged far and wide, and originally, 5,000 years ago, started out in Eastern Europe, actually, and migrated very slowly across the European continent until they finally reached the Celtic lands. And the way it would work is, a family would say, "Oh, I think we'll farm over in the next valley or there, and
Right.
they would move, and they would move maybe a few miles, and then one of the kids would grow up, and he said, "I think I'll farm in the next valley or there a while," and he'd move 3 or 5 miles, and so forth, and generationally, this migration occurred. Now, the Celtic Golden Age ran from about 1,000 BCE to the incursion of the Romans in the 2nd to 4th centuries.
Goodness.
Yeah. And during this amazing 1,000-year flowering of art, technology, culture, the Druids were relied upon to tell people when to plant, what the weather was going to be, how to heal, many et ceteras. They were responsible for Brean law in Ireland. They were considered, Breans were like legal people. And
Okay.
there's many different stripes of Druids, and they fulfilled many different roles.
That was my understanding, that there were different different brands of Druids. Okay.
Yeah. I could talk about that for 10 minutes. But
Can we bring it down just a couple?
No,
minutes?
I
Like I was going to say, the ones I maybe know a little more about because of Druid friends who are Welsh, is that even today there may have been a break in the spirituality because of religious differences, Christianity and such, but they still hold rites and they hold festivals and so forth in Wales. I don't know where else, though. I don't know if there are, in Ireland or Scotland or Cornwall, for instance. But it seems like that's been some of the traditions or the way of looking at the traditions and then holding rites still goes on today, not only, a little in this country, but there as well.
It's true.
Oh.
The hotbed of druidical activity in Los Angeles is the Green Man store.
Ah, yes.
It's really good
Green
to
Man
hook
store.
up with those guys.
Definitely.
The main person there, Griffin Kidd,
Griffin, right.
is
Yeah.
he rocks. He's really wonderful. He does circle in the same way that I do, so of course I think he's great. And he's really good at raising energy,
Right.
and it's a center for enlightenment, knowledge, learning, and lots of good books. Recommended.
Excellent. That's wonderful. I think, we're going to have to wind down here, I have already asked Merlin to come back because of the compendium of knowledge that he has in his, I would say 500, 600, 700 pages that I'm looking at right now. No, I'm teasing. But we talked about you doing perhaps something along the lines of, and it may change, but something along the lines of a portion of a ritual the next time that you come. You showed me, and I've actually done this ritual with you, and it was my first time really coming to understand something of reincarnation from within my own experience. It's the Alba. You can say it. What's the rite you would like to share next time?
Oh, I would be pleased. It's our Alban Elvid rite.
Elvid rite. All right.
And it's a way of journeying to past lives.
Yes.
And experiencing past lives. It's a regression.
Right.
And of course, it's framed up within a great poem called Praethu Anun, which is about the voyages of Arthur in the ship Prydwen. So, it works.
It's giving me chills.
We
right
usually
now.
have 8 or 9 people doing it. And usually about 3/4 of them have something happen.
I know I did.
Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. Steve did also, for sure. Yes. So, we won't be able. It probably wouldn't be appropriate to do it all online the next time, but you wanted to share at that time, when we next meet, some portion of it, though.
Sure.
Right? Okay.
Just for clarification's sake, the psychedelic rites that we did,
Yes.
we only performed them for 1 year.
And
the reason for that is that the group of people was not ready to unite in the magical way that was required on that very high level.
Yeah.
So actually, we have not done specifically psychedelic rites since then.
All right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was not necessary, it seemed, because we had gone there, we'd learned, we came back.
And you were able to do it without the psychedelics. Then,
The lessons learned stuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's been my understanding as well. Beautiful. All right. Thank you. What I was hoping that you would do, we could do a tarot reading, have you draw a card, because this has just been something we've been doing for a long time. I would love to see what card comes up for you.
As would I.
And then I will ask you to share a quote or a meditation, something meaningful for you. But here, let's cut these cards.
I might have something.
A little something? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Here, let's go ahead and have you.
Okay, I can do this.
All right. Excellent.
Shuffle papers.
Shuffle paper. Yes, you're hearing the shuffling of papers.
Okay.
And
papers.
just draw one card, and I'll see what it's showing you for this day. Ooh, Ace of Swords. The things that come up for this is an idea whose time has come, a plan of action. Swords, since they're about thoughts and ideas, also mean what are you planning to write, or are you continuing to write? I find it fascinating. The other thing I'm being told is, or reminded of, is this is about the Arthurian legend. There's Excalibur. So you drew Excalibur today.
Wow. Okay.
So we're talking about the plan, the inspiration of your journey going forward, which is really exciting, and maybe all of our journeys with you. So there is your card for the day.
Thank you, my dear. That's
Blessings.
a lovely card. That's really a good card.
It is. It's yes. So I am going to ask you, please, as we end today, to read something that's meaningful to you.
All right. I'll set this up.
All right.
So in my novel, Ariel and Electra, I really tried to stretch the boundaries of
Whoops. Because I make noises.
I really tried to stretch the boundaries of language. And I came up with a lot of my own grammar, punctuation, spelling, etc. So let me know if you want to read this book, and I'll arrange that to happen.
Yay.
Okay, so we're on a ship called the Ariel, and we're way the heck out there in a world that encompasses the 9 inner planets. And at this point in time, there's been a great migration of people into space. And this particular ship is artists and musicians. And what they do is they fly around and do shows and meet people and have adventures. So our hero has just encountered Electra of Ariel and Electra. Electra is a fairly sentient construct. And I could talk about that for 10 minutes. But he's come together with Electra, and this is the encounter that they have aboard this ship. A week later, in my blue velvet cabin, close on with Electra, a whiff of hyssop. This ritual is about the transfer of personal energies as currents, one of us to the other, in 3D space. This ritual is about visualizing these transfers as the interplay of sprays and throws of light, then awesomely, magically manifesting these lights around us. This ritual is about exploring high levels of awareness, of attunement with my craft-working paramour, and pleasure is the measure of the working. Picture 2 beings, Electra and myself, floating in the lotus pentagram position. This is in free fall. Hands at our folded knees, facing each other. We are in free fall magical gear with psychic crowns and balance belts and amplifier body jewels. And we are hugely steeped in spice. Spice is what I'm calling this alien-derived psychedelic that permeates the novel. And it's an homage to Frank Herbert, just so you know.
Yes, Dune.
Okay. So here I am with Electra. We make our magical connection solid and deep. We embrace, return to lotus, and begin spin drifting, matching to each other our flexures and our curves. And as sensate beings, we both reach out, and between our separate reaching, single fingertips almost touching, we cast a spark of blue. So you visualize this. There are 2 people whose fingertips are almost touching, connected by blue sparks. I like that. Anyway,
Very
it goes
much.
on like this for a goodly number of pages. I think that's a good enough taste right
Is that
there.
a taste? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So we are going to close today with saying thank you very much, Merlin, for being here. We're definitely going to have you here again if you so desire, and share more of your work. That would be that. This is exactly what we're looking for, and we're looking for you actually mentioned being able to spend some time doing a visualization that everyone perhaps can share in. So really
Yeah.
looking forward to that for sure.
I would love to come back.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you.
And my thanks to Paul Preston, my podcast technician, to Kevin McLeod for the music. A thank you to Allison Werner as my social media consultant and dear friend. And listeners, please keep cruising through your light and shadows. Join me in 2 more weeks. Blessed be.
Blessed be.